All right, we're pleased to have with us once again Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, who is a co-spokesperson for Québec Solidaire, just a few short days before the October 1st election. Gabriel, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, we're going to start things off with the latest headline, right? Because this is what everyone's talking about. The party's proposal when it comes to the tax-free savings account.
Yep.
A lot of people are scratching their heads about it. Jean-François Lisée basically saying, and the headline saying that you're coming after our money. So please clarify what you mean by that.
It's very classic for Jean-François Lisée to attack his opponents by, completely transforming what we're actually saying. And
so
it's
what
very
are
sad.
you actually saying?
What we're saying is that we think the government should encourage people to invest in the green economy by offering a Quebec-based tax-free savings account. We do not want to steal people's money. That's really a classic caricature of progressive propositions just like ours, where we're just saying we think that government should encourage people to invest in the green economy by offering them that tax-free savings account. If people absolutely want to invest in pipelines or big oil, they absolutely can. It's not our business. But we think that when the government gives a tax return, it can use that tax return to encourage people in a certain direction. And we know that the green economy is the economy of the future. And we want the government to encourage people to invest in that future by giving a tax return.
All right, so you just mentioned Jean-François Lisée.
Yep.
You just basically said that it's very typical of him to come after Québec Solidaire. So let's talk about this latest back and forth. Jean-François Lisée did spend a lot of time analyzing and trying to figure out who exactly is the leader of your party. So you're laughing about this, but he did bring up some interesting questions. People did have questions about it. So repeat, I guess, or maybe clarify what Manon Massé has been saying.
Québec Solidaire has been, functioning the same way for 12 years now. We have two co-spokesperson, two political leaders. It was before Françoise David and Amir Kadir, which people know very well. Right now, it's Manon Massé and me. If we are elected, Manon Massé will be the Prime Minister. So it is very simple. Nothing has changed. And what is happening right now is that Mr. Lisée is seeing that, especially in my generation, the Parti Québécois is going down. The Parti Québécois is losing its progressive reputation, especially with my generation, because of their decisions of the last years, going for oil on Anticosti Island, dividing Quebecers with the famous Charter of Values. Those decisions have really given a bad reputation to the Parti Québécois, especially with my generation. And Mr. Lisée is now seeing it in the polls. So he is panicking and he is desperate. So he is attacking us with sometimes outright lies, just like when he's saying that we want to, take the money of the people in their savings account, or by saying that there is a obscure leader governing Manon Massé in the shadows.
So he's lying.
Of course he is.
Okay, let's talk about now, because both of you've been clear, his party has been clear on your position about Quebec inside Canada. I said this to you the last time you were here. This is a primarily Anglophone and Allophone audience. People hear separation, they hear sovereignty, and they go, no way, no how. So there's been recent mentioning of partition, right? So basically, if there is a movement to separate, then the people who can want to stay, or the regions that want to stay, can go back. How does that make any? Can you explain that and clarify this, the Québec Solidaire's position on this? Because we're a bit confused right now.
What we say is that self-determination is a fundamental right.
Okay.
And it is a fundamental right for all peoples, for the Quebec people, of course, but also for the First Nations. First Nations, who were the first to settle on these land, have the right to decide their own future. And I think it's very coherent for us to say that we think that Quebec can decide its own future, but we think that First Nations also can. And if
the First Nations say we want to stay with Canada,
it would be a complete contradiction for us to say we think the Quebec people can decide what they want to do, but not the First Nation.
What about Montreal, which tends to primarily always vote against separation?
Montreal is part of Quebec.
So even though Montreal would vote primarily against separation?
There is nothing complicated here. It's very simple. There is the Quebec people, which is majority Francophone, but there is also a very important historical Anglophone minority that is an integrate part of Quebec society. There is also people coming from all around the world. All together, we form Quebec as a society. And there are the First Nations. And the First Nations who were there first on these lands have also a right to self-determination. We cannot deny them that fundamental right. And when we see what happened in Spain with the Spanish government, putting independentist leaders in jail because they wanted to express that fundamental right to decide their future. We would never do that here.
What about
with First
Anglophones'
Nations.
right? What about Anglophone rights to stay inside of Canada?
We think Anglophones are an integrated part of Quebec society. The project of independence that we want to build is a project that will protect, and not only protect, but fuel the Anglophone community by assuring that they keep their school boards, their hospitals, their institutions, because the Anglophone community in Quebec, the Anglophone communities, because there is not only one, but a lot all over the territory, are an integrated part in Quebec, and we want to build that new Quebec with them, not fighting them.
We're running out of time, but I have to ask you about this, because a lot of the people, many people watching will say, because you are very socially progressive, pro-women, pro-workers, a lot of ideas that many Quebecers identify with and aspire to. They're ideas that sometimes cost a lot of money. And I don't know if you know the expression in English, pie in the sky ideas, like very hopeful ideas. What do you say to people who say that about your party, that it's all dreamers that will end up costing us too much money?
What is a dream, I think, is to keep saying we need to invest in healthcare, we need to invest in education, we need to invest in the environment and the fundamental fight against climate change. Everyone keeps saying that. Everyone is agreeing on that. But there is only one party actually saying we need new money in order to do that. We need to get new revenues. We cannot spend more without getting more revenues. And that party is Québec Solidaire.
And where's all this money going to come from?
This money is not going to come from the middle class. It is not going to come from small businesses. It's going to come from big corporations who have seen their taxes lowered and lowered and lowered in the last years, while the taxes for the middle class and the small businesses have stayed the same. That is not fair. There are some corporations in our society that can contribute more. They are not paying their fair share, and we are very, very proud and not shy at all to be the only party to have the political courage to maybe step on a few toes and say big corporations have to do their fair share when it comes to funding education, healthcare, and the fight against climate change.
Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, thank you so much for taking the time. I guess we'll see you after October 1st.
Yes,
all right.
With a smile on my face.
There you go. Stay tuned. You're watching Breakfast Television on City TV.